Welcome to our panel. We're going to start with the video. If you could cue the video, please. Oh, the audio's going. I was going to talk over it. We're going to get right into it. Submerge Beyond the Render was an exhibition sponsored by the Render Network Foundation. It premiered in New York City September last year in partnership with Art Tech House. The premise was to bring diverse cohort of digital artists, different aesthetics using different tools, and to create a 3-minute piece for each artist, author from ground up, panoramic, immersive, large-scale, 18K resolution native content. And the goal was to showcase what happens when advanced compute power is open to creators everywhere in the world. And the 4 artists here was part of the 16 artists that participated in this exhibit, and my role was the executive creative director of this project. So we're going to start with our 4 artists. Tell us what you make and why, what drew you to the project, and tell us one thing that you thought was going to survive this spatial transition before going into the production, but it didn't.
Hey, what's up? I'm David Ariew. Yeah, I'm going to use my cheat sheet here because I do not have a brain that moves as fast as Jules or Rafiq. Like, I cannot think that fast, especially when I'm public speaking. But yeah, I'm David Ariew. I've been a 3D artist for about 15 years now, and I'm feeling old. And yeah, I just hit 40. Woo! Woo! I've been using Octane since 2013. But yeah, over the past 5 years or so, I've been finding that immersive art is my favorite new medium. I love VR as well. But yeah, my bread and butter for the past 8 years, excluding my NFT years, has been concert visuals. And that's already a step towards immersive visuals because of the massive, like, high-res canvases I'm working at with odd aspect ratios and insane resolutions, right? So, and my personal art style is meditative and spiritual. It's calming, peaceful. It's created with 3D infinite mirror rooms. It's like being immersed in golden light. To me, it feels like jumping into an alternate dimension that's more perfect than ours and more beautiful. And it creates an emotional reaction for the audience, which is something that's very difficult to do as an artist. It's a dimension of unfolding fractal complexity, and that level of detail just can't be experienced on a phone. So yeah, well, that's what drew me to this medium, is that it's the opposite of the rapid consumption and scrolling our world has become, and views and likes and all of that, you know. And when you surround the audience with your work, it almost forces them to be present, to exist in the artwork. Yeah, with mediums like VR or Art Tech House or the Sphere, artists like myself can actually transport the audience into our art. And to me, there's nothing more amazing than that. And as for what survives the move into the space and what doesn't, for all you gain from immersing the audience, when you're creating for VR or a huge space, it constrains the cinematic language you can use. If you whip the camera around, for instance, you make the audience sick. And with an equirectangular scene, meaning a scene that's spherical surrounding the audience, you're seeing everything in the environment all at once. It's very much like VR. So you can't choose different lenses like you would in a film. You can't really compose the shot the same way you would. So it changes the whole visual language. But those constraints also make the medium feel immersive. So it's a good trade-off.
By the way, the image that you're seeing behind you is Woosung's work. I'm going to cue David's a bit, but...
yeah, that's not mine. His is badass.
Yeah. If Woosung wants to introduce yourself, answer my question.
Yeah, I wish we could show the David beautiful visual when he introduces his work. But yeah, hi, I'm Woosung Kang. I'm a motion designer, art director based in LA. I'm making immersive contents and visuals for musicians and visualizers. So yeah, it's been a long journey as a 3D artist, and I'm so happy to be here with all the people I know, alongside with especially like these talented artists. So I'm really, really grateful I'm being here today. And the work you see here is David Jongyar. I made it for, actually started from K-pop concert, and then I had a chance to turn it into immersive version for Art Tech House version. So it was a truly amazing experience for me. So, and also all these talented artists joining together. So when I heard, do you want to join, and why not? Like this, that was really hard to pass. And the one thing I was sure about something gonna work in this immersive space like Art Tech House was because I've been working on a lot of immersive contents. So I was sure I could bring pretty good experience, immersive experience to the audience. But then I wasn't sure how much I could push the boundary of like in terms of dynamic camera movement or cinematography, like a kind of fast cut, because I've been using mostly VR medium, but Art Tech House is actually physical shared experience place. So that part I wasn't sure, but it ended up worked pretty good because I saw a lot of people just kind of dancing and enjoying my content. So I was really happy with that. Yeah.
All right, Blake.
Hello. My name is Kathryn. This was actually the first Art Tech House. I've been able to collaborate with them twice now, which has been super exciting. I'm a digital artist, for techie people, a 3D generalist, but in general, over the years through personal studies, because I started as a graphic designer, I taught myself 3D, and I kind of fell in love with art again, and like realized I wanted to focus more on like an artistic side of my craft versus with design, it can very much usually be commercial forward only. And that moonlighting over the years allowed me to actually garner clients from music to alcohol to cars, to K-pop, which is still music, but really cool to always say on the side, to concert visuals, beauty, tech, you name it. I've worked in every single industry at this point. And I actually always really loved immersion, but had either not the visibility or the connections, or was not able to like figure out how to get my work in that, because I'm very aesthetics first and technical later. Any of my collaborators know that. And with that, I used to upload 360s onto YouTube so I could just see it in VR. I was having fun with it. That led me to the opportunity to work with a tech company in San Fran that was working on this mobile game called Holla Vista, which is like a kind of hide and seek 360 gyroscope phone mobile app. And then that experience has led me to Art Tech House years later, which has been super exciting and rewarding, because with the 360s and their previous ways, how I would work is still very isolated. You're by yourself with your headset, or you're on a mobile game, and even if you're with your buddy, you're both looking at your little device and being kind of an introverted experience. So now seeing this today is just like super exciting to me, very heart fulfilling, and seeing kids run around or couples taking a cute selfie, it just brings it all kind of into this like holistic, wholesome moment. This second one was done with my collaborator, Malavita, who does ink drops in a bucket, and then she scans it and then uses Touch Designer to colorize it and everything. And so I put it into a dream space, and we went, let's go super feminine on this. And we kind of made like a Sailor Moon, vomit, Art Nouveau, rainbow situation. And as for what survived, I don't think we made any sacrifices for this, which is nice. But an Easter egg, if it's ever seen in a different situation, is I actually did design the full 360, even though in the space you only see 270 degrees of it. So there's a whole unseen side, which is, I'm excited one day maybe people will see.
We're going to look at David's work that you missed.
Oh, yeah.
And then he did two.
Oh, yeah,
This
that's
Quantum
really
Star, yeah. And then there's Josh.
All right. Everybody, I'm Josh Pierce, and I'm a visual designer and artist, and I'm also an art director based here in LA. And I've been working in Cinema 4D and Octane. I started in Cinema 4D in like 2002. So I'm like pretty old head with the with the 3D design, and then I started doing Octane right around when it came out, around 2015. I started seeing like people doing stuff, posting stuff to Instagram. I got inspired, my friends got inspired, and we all started making dailies and posting them to Instagram. And my process has been like, kind of from a mental health standpoint, I started making art as a practice every day in order to sit down and kind of ground myself and do something for myself, and put that out there into the world. And over time, that work kind of became meditative in its own way, and people began to relate to that and reflect that back to me. So, so I create these kind of spiritual dreamscapes. I feel like our work is all a little bit similar, but I think that's why we relate so well to each other in a panel format like this. But so I create these kind of spiritual dreamscapes that are designed to bring people into the present moment and to ground them in a sense of calming ease and comfort, to give inspiration, to give optimism. You know, like David was saying, like when you see this on your feed, I hope that you pause. I hope that it gives you a moment to reflect. And I think for me, like the biggest challenge was, you know, I'm used to creating things for social media, and it's pretty small scale, and I'm usually rendering stills. So I wasn't sure about like rendering at 15K a 3-minute piece. And that was really where, you know, obviously Render Network came like into play hugely, because like it allowed me to explore a lot of things, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but like things that I didn't think that I was going to be able to do, that it actually knocked it out of the park. And what was so beautiful to me, and Blake touched on this too, was like seeing how people interact with it in the space, and like seeing, you know, people come in and they're like, wow, this is just like, I can't believe this is here in the middle of Manhattan. You know, I go into this basement and I'm like surrounded and immersed in this experience of peaceful calmness that lets me kind of just recenter and get grounded. And then you walk out that back door and you're in the city again. But it's a really amazing experience, and it's really cool that it's still there right now. And that you can still go and see it. So, yeah, and I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to, you know, to come here, speak, share. It's been awesome. Yeah.
Good vibes, Josh.
Before we go further, I just want to touch on some of the work that actually went into it, using White Rabbit by Michelle and Emily. So one of the participants of the exhibit was Michelle and Emily, and this is White Rabbit, that also won an Emmy last year. And this is a scene from their original anime piece. And here is a screenshot from our process workshop, and turning into that same scene into one of the immersive pieces that was part of the exhibition. And what you quickly learn in this process is that, you know, turning something from screen to, in this case, screen to an architectural environment isn't a scaling problem, it's a perception problem. So, you know, when the frame falls apart, the same type of composition approach, or the editing rhythm that works at 16:9 aspect ratio doesn't work anymore. How color behaves doesn't work anymore, since it's an ambient element. So we're doing this sort of back and forth workshop with the artists to be able to sort of nail and test the concepts in this sort of process in the 3D previs stage. And when you look at the final output, it's the same creative, but two very different experiences. It's not because the creative changed, it's because the relationship between the audience and the content completely changed. So it's a really incredible experience in space. And here's a same sort of, it's another example from the same work. This is a scene, and this is sort of the process, and this is the result. And these are sort of the aspects that all four of these artists here have gone through. And we'll kind of talk about that, starting with David. So we're going to just be playing this string out video that shows all of the pieces while we're going to be speaking about some of the challenges that you kind of face. 1685 was a massive concert visual for Coachella. It's a very timely. It's Coachella's happening right now. But it was a massive concert visual, but it's still a directional audience, right? And when you have to change it to or bring it to a spatial environment, what did you have to rethink? What broke?
Yeah.
Walk us through your creative process.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, concert visuals are already a step towards immersive visuals versus like typical ad agency work. You're working on huge LED canvases and often multiple screens that surround the audience. So there's a lot of similarity there. And you're also trying to build a consistent world between all the different screens. And in this case, the screen or the visuals were already at 7K resolution, so they're already really high. And I knew that they would hold up well at 18K because this was the first time I've ever played with digital stained glass. And my wife Chelsea in the audience there, I don't know. Hey, there she is. She spent about 2 weeks drawing out this insanely intricate design, and then we spent a week converting that into an extruded model and dropping in textures by hand, one at a time. There, you can see it right there. So yeah. All those stained glass pieces, like we created all these different textures. We made them sure they were physically accurate. We made sure the lead was separate from the glass pieces. So we were really modeling it based on actual stained glass. Her mom designed stained glass, so she was around that process. So she actually advised me on the physics of it, how to make it real. And it's easily one of the most like detailed 3D scenes I've ever built. So going in, I knew it was a really good foundation. It was already holding up really nicely at massive resolution. And adapting it to the space was surprisingly easy in this case. We did have to move some columns around and change the scene a bit and consider the different dimensions of the three main walls at Artec House. There's one that's like shorter than the other. There's like the main wall, there's one to the right, and then there's one to the left, and the left is shorter. So it's a bit odd compositionally, and then you also have to consider the floor and matching that with the whole vibe. You're basically world building, But yeah, we got the whole piece to fit nicely without a ton of changes to the original Coachella design. And basically, rather than looking like straight on to this huge cathedral, now you're inside the cathedral as it wraps around you and is on the floor. So yeah, really cool. And what really changed with moving to this immersive canvas, I guess, or what you could say broke first, is actually the animation. So that's maybe a bit of a surprise. So concert visuals are very much just a piece of the puzzle with shows. You have the artists and their music, you've got lighting, pyro, lasers, all of these elements going on that need to coexist and not compete with each other. It's okay for the visuals to stand out sometimes, but you don't want them to like overshadow the performance of the main artist. Whereas with this setting, the visuals are the star. Like we are the artists, we're displaying our work that way, and we have to craft a narrative over, several minutes that is engaging the whole time. And with my original animation, it had this intense pounding beat that would have been like overwhelming and repetitive by itself. And the original animation wasn't even like intended to stand on its own. And yeah, like I said, we needed like a visual story arc basically, right? So with this piece, we chose a different song from Zed that had this arpeggio that builds like very gradually. And that was like the perfect opportunity to reveal the animation stages with that build up in the song. So it starts out with just a few stars lighting up to the music, and with every layer of sound added, I brought in more pieces of stained glass lighting up to the music until it's like this insane symphony of light and color. So the animation was also like an opportunity to direct the audience's eyes, which is a lot more difficult in an immersive setting. Like, where do you look? You can look anywhere. So bringing in groups of elements at a time, or just like individual stars that are doing patterns, like directs your attention here, and then it's like gradually revealing the whole tapestry of the artwork. So that was really the big challenge, was like directing people's eyes, and then making sure all the elements were synced to the music. There's other technical stuff I could talk about, like OpenEXR. So it's like with concert visuals, a lot of the time you're like layering up a ton of stuff. You've got all these passes, essentially light passes. And in this case, I had hundreds of passes, little animations that I was looping and stacking on top of each other and screening on top of each other. But I also have to like play it in a reasonable amount of time to see the sync with the music, right? So I'm like working in Premiere, which is probably not the best software for this, and I'm working, and I can't play back OpenEXRs that are 16 or 18K in any kind of reasonable amount of time. So I'm like, I need this stuff to be fairly real time. So I'm basically baking out ProRes passes and stacking them on top of each other. But then Premiere gets so bogged down with the number of 16K ProRes, movies that I'm stacking on top of each other, that I had to start like baking out the entire like animation as one ProRes file and bring it back in. So it was a very destructive process that introduced a ton of compression over time that I didn't even notice till late in the game. I'm like, oh shit, there's all this freaking blocky stuff that wasn't there in the original, piece. So I'm like rotoscoping back in stuff from the original design. So it was kind of in ways, it's a nightmare. It's like I've done some work now for the inside of the sphere, or I've been part of that process, and it's like dealing with tons of data and terabytes of data. It's just everything slows down, everything is harder, but like conceptually it's not that bad to go from like I can imagine this piece of artwork that I've created, this 3D world, this 3D scene extended to an immersive setting. Like that imagination, that jump to me is not that difficult. It's just that there's a lot of technical annoyances.
Always is.
Ooh, yeah. We can also talk about quite a bit.
Yeah.
We deal with that so long. Blake, you have a very recognizable style. We also talk about, in the beginning of the process about you wanted to have a very specific female gaze to your work, specifically the one that you just did. And that's very central to your work. Does that change when you have to go from the screen to something that surrounds people? Or does that even change at all?
Like the goal of like that kind of feminine edge, like does that change or so much?
How you communicate or what you want to communicate?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So even with this most recent one, which was the Super Rainbow one, I knew I wanted to work with a female collaborator. I wanted it to just be, like biological woman vibes. And a lot of that is also because when I first started learning 3D in 2015, so I'm a veteran enough at this point, most of the days. And with that, everything that I saw that was inspiring, because I was on YouTube camp, like I didn't go to school to learn 3D. This was all just midnight hours. I was just like, oh, this is really cool and super dude bro. And all my inspirations at the time were also retrofuturism. I love biopunk. I love cyberpunk, of course. And I was like, man, I really love these genres, but like, that's not like when I'm creating, I want to kind of create these soft, like I watched Sailor Moon as a child, kind of like fun, colorful works that give me a sense of nostalgia because again, me pursuing the 3D trade was very much therapeutic for me because I was just burnt out during the day doing marketing, design, branding work. And so when given any kind of platform, and especially being very fortunate where people do seek me out for this style, it is where it's like, I want to honor that inner child. And I also want people to, for example, with the example of retrofuturism, Rest of Soul Sid Mead is a legend. And when I go through his books, I'm like, this is so beautiful, but it's also like very hard and it's very angular and it's very, clinical at times because it is that kind of aesthetic of sci-fi that took the train or the bull by the horns, whatever those metaphors are. And so for me, I was like, I kind of want to go more into the more feminine areas of art history. Like Art Nouveau is a really great example where it's very organic, it's very shapely. Think of like Rubenesque kind of paintings where everything just has like a plumpness and a health and vigor to it. And so I wanted to kind of merge these references and influences, which I think every single artist has, with what was like true to my soul. So when it came to having an immersive situation, what I was really excited for, and someone on your team did send me a video of it. I don't know if they knew I was looking for it or not, but what I was excited for was especially like women any age, but especially young girls seeing something in a text space that could potentially translate to them. And this isn't just women, this is anyone who just, has like a feminine edge to them. And there was a video sent to me where it was two girls skipping along the rocks and, elementary for sure. And it just like made me feel very wholesome in a way where I was like, man, usually like what I get wholesome out of a project, if it's not going live, is just the invoice being paid. And now I get to see two little girls like play, and it was just an extremely 360 moment where it's like, it's just that one in a room thing that you hope happens.
No, that's great. Josh, you touched on this, but let's talk about the pacing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like you were just trying to hit a specific emotional target. And when we start first working on your piece, we quickly found that pacing was a big thing. Going too fast, disorienting. Going too slow is too static. And you kind of wrestle with that a bit.
So that was one of the challenges. Like I was sharing earlier, my work is a lot of times it's very static, it's locked off. And when I do animation, it's almost this cinematograph style where you have like a moving image and the water is rippling and the leaves are blowing a little bit and you see maybe just subtle motion, but there's no real camera moves, there's no there's not a lot of heavy motion, which is part of the intention because it's meant to be meditative. So when we wanted to bring it into the space, part of the idea that we first started exploring was a journey of meditation that begins in one place and ends somewhere else. And so how do you, how do you create that journey? And how do you do it in a way that doesn't feel disorienting? Because when you have this space and it's 18K and it's wrapping around you, if the camera starts flying through this forest, this beautifully glowing purple forest, it's going to get very disorienting very quickly. So there was a lot of tweaking back and forth with the pacing because, yeah, if it goes too fast, it gets very disorienting. If it goes too slow, it looks very dull and boring. Which to me, it would have been okay, but I think like what we were able to do was so much more than I had originally envisioned. What I had originally envisioned was a space where you could go in and see my work and have a meditative experience. And what it became was this more of a spectacular, immersive experience. And like Blake was just talking about, there were like seeing kids running and playing inside of my art was probably the biggest and most rewarding thing that came out of it, was to be able to see how people interacted with it. But overall, technical challenges, yeah, I mean, there was all kinds of stuff that Render Network was able to do that I didn't think that I was going to be able to do. We sat down and I had a scene. I wish the video was still playing, but I had a scene with clouds, and we're using these VDBs. And there's 40 VDBs in this scene. It's rendering it, it's rendering it at 18K, and it's like the frames are taking like 5 minutes on the farm, and so like we're clicking through like tens of thousands of credits to get through these scenes, but it's incredible that it can do it. And I didn't think that it would be able to. I was like, no, we're going to have to rethink this scene. And Phil and Riki and you guys were just like, no, just let it cook. It's going to be awesome. Trust us. And I was like, okay, I'll trust you. And we let it go, and it finished, and it was beautiful, and we delivered it, ahead of schedule, and it probably is my favorite part of the whole 3-minute experience, is because it's something that happened when I was actually like kind of, I think I was taking a walk or just sitting, and I like closed my eyes and I was thinking about the piece, and I just felt this like floating through the clouds and seeing it like all around us. And to be able to translate into space as an artist is like a dream come true. To be given the tools and the canvas to work on, dream come true. Yeah.
Nice. The song. Nebula Junker. His piece, by the way, the headset piece is here. You should go experience it. It's amazing. It went through 3 different perceptual changes. It was first a K-pop concert visual, and then it became an immersive piece, and then it was a headset experience. Yes. It made me think. It's a very different audience to work relationship, and it made me think if there's a true version of that work, or if it's a different, if it's a new work every time when the context changes.
I want to say all of them are true version because it has its own characteristic and beauty of it. It started from the K-pop concert thing. It was just massive screen, but it was more directional, just one screen in front. But then after I was able to turn it into VR, the immersive version for Art Tech House, which is really surrounded film. So also I was able to double up the frame rates and then massive render size by get support from the render network. So yeah, it's kind of different. And then the VR version after. And I feel like this is almost like a listening same music on live concert versus listening at your home. So yeah, I think every version has its own unique taste, but I love Art Tech House one really much more than others because it was more like a surrounded feeling as a shared experience with like other audience just right next to you, so you can see other audience reaction. So it was truly amazing experience. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to talk about the audience experience a little bit, but we also want to talk about the logistics and the pipeline. We all dealt with the constraints of a render, waiting for renders and moving data around. And I think there's an honest conversation to have here. A lot of times as creatives and people behind the scenes, we're moving renders and data around a lot of times. And it's just the constraints are shifting, but it's always there. You had talked a little bit about
Yeah, a
this.
little bit of technical stuff.
Yeah, we don't have to go maybe
Yeah,
too much.
Not too deep nerdy now. Yeah.
But maybe just walk us through a little bit, like some of
Sure.
the interesting facts about it that might be interesting to the audience.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, rendering at this resolution is just ridiculous. Actually, the first time we tried to render my piece Quantum Stargate in 16K, it was like a year and a half ago. It totally broke the render network, and yeah, we just had millions of failed frames just because of the resolution. I think the higher resolution you go, also it takes more VRAM. I recently found out. So yeah, the best we could do was 8K at the time, and then we AI upscaled it. So there was a lot of, when I saw it in person, there was a lot of chatter because AI upscaling just still pretty much sucks. And AI is not capable yet of these massive resolution projects. But after a year, they did some magical work behind the scenes on the network, and then we went back and rendered it in 16K. Yeah, they optimized it, and it worked. And yeah, it was, what was I going to say? Like, I calculated how long it would have taken for a single one of my computers to render. So I'm still on 3090s. I'm in the Stone Age here. But I have, say, a rig with two 3090s. Any guesses how long it would have taken for a single one of my machines to render?
6 months.
Pretty good. 2 years. 2 years, bro. So, I mean, it is, it's like I wouldn't have been able to do this by myself. It was 50K, right? That's how much it costs to render at this scale. And it's similar with the Sphere and with these insanely high resolution canvases. But yeah, so I'm grateful because as an artist, there is no better feeling than allowing the audience to step into your work. And I love that about VR too. VR is way more intimate. But showing people my VR experience, which you can check out after this if you want. I've got it on hand as well. I've had people come out of there like joyful and exuberant and spreading their arms. I've had people come out crying or scared, like thinking that they're like my wife and I went to Hong Kong for an exhibition, and the VR experience at the time was very much lower res, but people still had a really visceral reaction to it. Some people felt like they were transcending. They're like, is this the spirit path to death? I'm like, that's exactly what it is. It's like when you get that kind of a reaction from someone as an artist, it's incredible. Like I spent, the first 10 or more years of my career just trying to make shit look cool. Like this is like the best reaction I would get is, this is badass. That space scene, those explosions, it's like, that's not as important to me as the kind of reactions I can get when I put someone into my artwork. And with VR, it like, with this experience, it feels like you're a soul floating through another dimension, and it really puts you into another place. And the higher resolution it is, actually, the more emotionally impactful it is, because your eyes see all those pixels, and they feel real. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I got. that went from technical to artistic in the discussion really fast. Maybe I had some more stuff about the pipeline. I don't know. Yeah, it's stuff I said before about just dealing with vast amounts of data and things slowing down a lot. And yeah, I'm honestly not the most technical artist. You guys have a lot more experience dealing with OpenEXR sequences of that scale and servers and all that. And I want to avoid all of that. But anyway, the render network's amazing for just dropping your stuff on there, spending a ton of money, and getting something incredible back.
I mean, that we're going to kind of touch on some part of that because when renders takes days, you have to commit to a creative direction and you have to stick with it. And in the corporate world, then you also have to convince your client to stick with the creative direction. And it can get sticky. But if your render cycle takes just hours or less, you can test your creative decisions, and maybe, especially at the scale. You think that you have a little proxy that you can look at, but it is different when you have the full thing. It's just a different thing. Let's just talk about how having this render resource will change how you work going forward and how it impacts your practice. That's
Yeah, I mean, was around the 2-year mark estimate off my also two 3090s, who are my lovely children, as well. So, our tech house would happen, I guess, in 2027-ish, if we were doing this locally. I'm also on another immersive project that'll be later this year in LA right now, where we're doing 8K, still 30 FPS because very slow animation. But working with the render network on that as well. And it was very much like me educating the client, being like, no, if you want this, I calculated it and I was like, each of these will take 100 days on my home machine if I have to do it here. So we need to, just politely inflate the budget a little because rendering is a luxury, but it is an expense at the end of the day. And so as a whole, it does allow for these really larger than life concepts to actually see the physical world. And it keeps us from being, at least speaking as a digital artist, it keeps us from being contained to quite literally just really crappy bit rates on Instagram and, just seeing things in a very uninspired and, non-inventive situation. So yeah, the best word is it is empowering, but it is also allowing people to think bolder, thinking bigger, and our tech house is super phenomenal. If you guys opened another space, I'm sure you'd be like, what do we do to spice it up even more? And it's just allowing that to be able to be considered at the end of the day.
Well, we have less than 10 minutes, so let's just talk a little bit about the audience experience. Since that's where the work ends, right? This all goes to experiencing. And Woosung, I don't want to ask you because he has come to Arctic House multiple times after the opening. Blake hasn't even made it to Arctic House. And can you tell us, first of all, what made you come multiple times?
Yeah.
What did you experience that's different every time? And what did you see that you couldn't have being inside the production?
First of all, I'm keep coming back again when I visit New York every single time because it's like your favorite movies and you want to watch it again and again. So especially for Submerge, there's tons of different tastes of the artists showing their different work in different space. I mean, in the same space, but then depending on the artist, it looks so different. It's immediately change the vibe. So that's really fascinating for me. So that's why I keep coming back. And also when I experience it in first floor, in the middle of the first floor, you are surrounded by all the different sidewall and the bottom and front. But then if you look at the second floor, you can see entire view and then you can look at the other audience reaction. So it gives pretty different perspective every time I visit. So that's main reason. Also, their cocktail is pretty good. So I got some complimentary cocktail. So
that was the takeaway. Good cocktails.
So Josh, you got to also experience your work there. Tell us what happened, not what you hoped for, but what actually happened when the audience was in your work.
Yeah, I mean, seeing my work in this space and thank you again for welcoming my work into this space. because seeing it like this it's unlike anything else, and watching people interact with it, and you can see this person here is just having a moment in my pink forest, hanging out, looking up, doing her little meditation right there. The experience that I think people have is unique to each person, and for me, like for what I was trying to accomplish, it worked beautifully. The journey, starting off in one place and then ending as we went through to the end. I don't know what else I can say. It's, one of the reasons that I make art is because it's very difficult for me to communicate what I want to say with words. And so doing things like this, it's kind of like, you have to just see the work, you have to experience it. And what better way to experience it than immersively, like inside, what we have at Art Tech House. And I think that's what draws people back over and over again. Like Woosung was saying, like, you want to keep coming back because it's like, you try to explain to people, like, there's this thing and I went there and I did it and it's awesome. And like, I can't tell you anything besides, like, you got to see it for yourself. You have to go there and experience it because there's no way to really describe it. And just to like touch on your last question too, because I got skipped, the render network is freaking amazing. I just used it for a huge project also, a competitor festival that's happening right now. I did the main titles for. I rendered like something like 5 minutes worth of 8K scenes, and like I was dropping a scene up there, pulling it down, like you were saying, like being able to visualize it, like immediately pulling it down, checking it out. The render network was so powerful because I would upload a scene with 3 different takes in it, and it could render 3 different takes, like all in one shot, and then pulling down like hundreds of image sequences and then pushing it out. And like, I felt like I had a whole studio like at my disposal, and like it would not have been possible without Render Network. And they were super integral, very graciously allowed us to use the network. And anyway, yeah, and thank you again for all of that. But yeah, the audience experience, it's a beautiful thing to see people come in and experience it in that way.
Yeah, so we're at end of our panel. We just want to end with a little comment that I think the in real life experiences are going to be an important aspect in this digital and social media and AI world. And these tools and platforms such as Render Network is an integral part of how we're going to be able to create these experiences in real life. And we have SUBMERGE, the Beyond the Render, was one of those sort of case studies. There is going to be a case study that's going to be coming out, and hopefully, if you're interested, you'll be able to read it. And if you're in New York, please come and see everybody's work. It's an experience, none like other. They're beautiful photos or videos, but there's nothing like experience it. Especially there's an audio aspect to it as well. 31 channels of spatial audio accompanies all of these pieces of work. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you for Internet Foundation.